You're listening to This Much Is True. I'm Richard Aedy.
I'm Siobhan Marin. Richard, how important do you think the counselling was for Leela's recovery?
Well, she feels that she would have got there by herself because she'd already started on that path, but that going to counselling really sped up the process. And talking to Leela, it made me want to get that other perspective, the counsellor's point of view. Not Leela's counsellor, but someone who does this all the time.
I'm Rachel Bernstein, and I'm an educator and a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I live in Los Angeles. I've been working with former cult members and their families and people who have gotten involved in extremism and also relationships with malignant narcissists. I've been doing this work for about 30 years now.
So Rachel specialises in the sort of situations we've been talking about in this series. How does she approach the job of helping people get better?
Well, when I work with someone, I really have them come to the table if I'm able to work with them in person, and I have them be the expert of their experience. Come and teach me. Even teach me why I'm wrong about why I feel the way I do about the group that you're involved with. I want to be open. My stance is not that I know more than you. It's I'm curious.
Rachel's curious, open, interested, and she's also kind, which turns out to be really important.
I was doing an intervention with a woman who had been involved with a guru for about 20 years. And a lot of the things that I presented to her, she was deflecting, and I could see her shutting down. So I thought, let's take a break. And I said to her, would you care for some tea? Because I noticed there was a whole setup for tea and coffee. And she stopped, and she looked down at her feet and then looked up at me, and she said, what did you say? And I thought maybe I said something offensive. I said, I'm just offering if you'd like some tea. I'm happy to make some for you. She started crying because it was in that moment she realized in her 20 years of service, no one had ever done anything for her. Her life had been in service to someone else who did not appreciate it, who was always telling her she needed to work harder. So it was in the moment of caring that she noticed what she had been missing for all those years.
Kindness and curiosity. I love that. And it totally makes sense. So what does Rachel do next?
It's quite subtle what she does. She gently guides her clients in a different direction.
What I try to do is I try to just do education and say, listen, you haven't said any of the things that I'm concerned about the group, but I'll tell you what I'm concerned about. I'm not saying you have to leave it, but I'm going to let you know about, let's say, 10 of the following things that I've heard. Or these are the characteristics of a cult. Go back to your group if that's where you want to go and see if you see these things with your own eyes. And that's usually the way people can leave in a healthier way, because they're not pulled into a group and then pulled out. They actually get themselves out, but you're able to educate them so they make a more kind of informed decision where then they know what to watch out for. It's a very empowered way of having people kind of have the light bulb go off for themselves.
Rachel's been doing this a long time and she's good at it. But she says the QAnoners are hard work.
So what's different about the people who have gotten involved in QAnon is that they really do think that they're involved in something that is a mainstream movement. That is different usually than a cult group. People who get involved in kind of fringe organizations do know they're part of something that's fringe. But because QAnon has permeated so much of our population and mainstream thinking and political language, etc., I think people really do not have a sense about how different it is and how cult-like it is.
I don't know if it's because of that, but Rachel's also found them more confronting than other patients.
There is a lot of tension and a defensiveness and an aggressiveness. I found that there is a regression that I've noticed. I feel like even when I'm talking to adults, I feel like I'm speaking to a 14-year-old. don't tell me what to do. You can't be right. Only I know. It's very hard to get them to just come to the table.
I think most of us would find that super hard. Has Rachel had much success with helping QAnoners?
She has. And she was telling me about one woman in particular.
There was a woman who was actually quite liberal, who was part of a yoga community and got involved in QAnon. She cared very much about wanting to save the children. That was her way in. That was the thing that really spoke to her.
She's not talking about the charity there. She's referring to the QAnon belief that a cabal of pedophiles is taking, abusing and killing children. This woman wanted to stop that.
And so I connected with her over that and wanted to find out how many children she had saved and where she went to save the children. Now, I knew she wasn't doing that, and I know that QAnon hasn't saved one child. But I said, really, are you able to see it in action? And she said no. And I said, so then let's take all of that good energy and transfer it over to something where you're going to be able to see it in action. And she got involved in a child advocacy group where they could really help, because she realized it was hollow. It was just the belief system, but she wasn't doing anything.
So Rachel helps people to work it out for themselves. And that's effective, even for those who are deep in QAnon.
I think up to a point, yes. But she's not kidding herself about how much difference she's able to make.
So with these particular cases, it's hard to feel successful, although I have had my successes, which has felt very satisfying. What makes it difficult is because QAnon and other groups like it have developed their talons, where it stretches into other areas. Like there's someone who I was working with who said that she goes to a church that is connected with QAnon. So she said her pastor has shown her where in the New Testament it shows signs of QAnon and it foretells the things that they have predicted. So that's very hard to fight when people think this is thousands of years ago. And this is something that God talked about thousands of years ago.
That same issue came up in the last episode. It's very problematic.
Yeah, people like Rachel, and there aren't many people like Rachel, can only do so much.